Professor Marilyn Berrett is currently serving as chair of the Department of Dance at Brigham Young University. She's the founder and artistic director of Connect, a dance education outreach company at BYU that has presented lively and educational dance assemblies and workshops to over 12,000 children every year since 2002. She has served as artistic director of BYU's Dancers Company and coordinator of the Dance Major program. Marilyn is a certified elementary educator, independent dance artist, and has been a master teacher in the Artist in Education program with the Utah Arts Council for over 35 years. She is currently a member of the BYU ARTS, I think that spells arts, Partnership Coordinating Council, and an officer on the Dance and the Child International Board of Directors. During her BYU career, she has choreographed over 30 dances for students and professionals, winning the 2009 Most Innovative Choreography Award at Repertory Dance Theater's 2009 Charette competition. She's been a master teacher and presenter of professional development workshops for arts and leadership, arts leadership organizations and universities in California, Utah, Virginia, China, and South Africa. She just returned from China, and I hope you're over jet lag, Marilyn. It's grateful you do this. She has guest taught for professional dance companies in the U.S. and Puerto Rico. Her choreography has been featured in award-winning films and main stage productions across the U.S. and in Brazil, Canada, China, Israel, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, the Netherlands, South Africa, and Turkey. She loves mentoring future dance educators, mountain biking, attending cowboy poetry gatherings, and mostly spending time with her family. We look forward to hearing from you, Marilyn. And now we'll ask Paul if he'd offer a word of prayer to start.
Thank you so much for that prayer, Paul, and that introduction. Alan, I appreciate the friendliness that I feel always from you, and that I'm more comfortable with you calling me Marilyn than Professor Berrett. I sometimes like to leave my reservations at restaurants, however, under Professor X. So that's... But I am grateful for the opportunities that are mine to profess what I believe and to profess those things that matter most. At age 4, I had the great opportunity to travel with my cousin Jane Luke to her dance class with Virginia Tanner up in these big old white barracks at the University of Utah campus. Now, my Aunt Zelda, her mother, was taking care of me while my mother was in the hospital. And I remembered distinctly how I knelt and prayed for my mother, because my mother had taught me to pray. And I prayed that Jesus would watch over her, and that I felt better and could go to sleep at my Aunt Zelda's house, when I would always make sure that I asked Jesus to stay with my mother in the hospital. Now, what really happened at the age of 4, besides that little trip to stay a few days down here in Provo, was we drove all the way up to Salt Lake so Jane could take her dance class with Virginia Tanner, as I said. And I walked, after this long car drive, there wasn't I-15 in those days, but after this long drive up the highways to get to the University of Utah, my Aunt Zelda said, you can go out and play on the grass and play on those swings, or you can come in and watch. But if you come in and watch, you have to sit very quietly and not make a sound. Well, I chose to go in and watch. And I sat down in the corner of this big sunny yellow studio with tall windows and the warm sunlight coming in from both sides. And there was this giant black grand piano in the corner and this big wooden floor, and this lithe young dancer led my cousin Jane and about 13 other students, a couple of boys in the class, in this most amazing movement. I was watching them do all these things with their bodies that I had never imagined a body could do. And I was so intrigued and entranced. I wasn't going to talk. I couldn't talk. I was just captivated. And besides the lithe dancer teacher, there was this wonderful, lithe, and very large, silver-haired Miss Ruby sitting at the piano, playing music that matched the dance. It wasn't like she was playing out of a book. She was playing right in the moment with what the dancers were doing. It was almost like they'd move and then she'd respond, and then she'd play and then they'd respond. It was really so magical. And I'd been to Disneyland. This was better than what I remembered the magic of Disneyland. So I was hooked, but it got better. This day got better. In walked Miss Virginia, not an attractive woman, kind of large, and she had a basket. That's why I brought these visual aids. She had a basket of seashells that she and her dancers had picked up on the beaches of Hawaii the summer before. And she held up one. And it was much bigger than this. I hope you can see it. But I picked this one because it has that smooth, rubbed finish surface on the inside, and these rough and bumpy edges and these spikes and these spokey parts. And she had the dancers touch it and feel it and rub it on their cheeks and ooh, say ouch. And they were just really enjoying this seashell as she passed it around. And she said something that I never will forget. There is a dance inside this seashell, and each of you are going to go discover it for yourself. Well, my 4-year-old mind went, what? How could there be a dance in a seashell? How would they know what to do for a dance? But it wasn't long before their smooth, spiraling movements and their sharp slices and pokes and spokes were just exactly what the seashell was. And after that day, we went back to Provo. I prayed for my mother that night again, went right to sleep, and then eventually came home, and Mom was doing better. But everyone I spoke to, anyone that would listen, I said, when I grow up, I'm going to grow my hair long, pierce my ears, and dance with Miss Virginia. I wanted to do that magic. But it wasn't until age 11 that my wish was fulfilled. But I never stopped saying that. At school, where do you want to be when you grow up? I'm going to dance with Miss Virginia. I didn't know where I was going to go, or maybe I'll be a dance teacher, but it just never was anything but. And so that was not to be for my family. My mother was single mothering 7 children, and we just did not have the money for tuition for dance class. But when I was 11 years old, still chanting that same mantra, my brother started dating a dancer. And they developed a bold plan. They made an appointment with Virginia Tanner and asked what they could do in exchange for a year's tuition so that I could dance at her studio. My brother, who had some electrician skills, wired her office and built some shelves for her and did a few other things, and that was going to pay for 1 year of magic for me. And it was a glorious year. I was so enchanted and so in love. And I have to say again, if it sounds like I'm only talking about my story of dance, you have to know how dance and the spirit were always intertwined for me, that I felt such a presence of divinity and of higher feeling whenever I was dancing, that I know that my spirit, as Elder Boyd K. Packer says, was being tuned quickly by an artistic experience. He says that the arts have the capacity to teach our spirits faster than we would otherwise be able to learn, and to prepare our spirits for receptivity. And I felt like my spirit was growing equally with my body and my creative juices and mind. So that year passed, and again, in that same yellow studio, that big sunny yellow tall windowed studio with the black grand piano, at the end of that year, we were all sitting around in a circle around that piano. Miss Virginia was standing at the piano, just like the first time I'd seen it when I was 4, and she was saying to us, our class, on the last day of class, well, how many of you are coming back after the summer break? And that was the first moment it really hit me. My year of tuition payment was done. And in my little heart and my quivering chin, I was thinking thoughts like, my life is over. And she went student to student around a semicircle. I happened to be the very last one that she came to. And by the time she got to me, I had literally sheets of water just running down my cheeks and dripping onto my leotards. I opened my mouth and could only croak. Oh! I couldn't speak. She just looked at me and said, and Marilyn, you'll be back in the fall. I danced on scholarship with Miss Virginia until I graduated from high school. And I owe her such a debt. At age 14, still with Miss Virginia, another galvanizing part of who I would become happened. We traveled on the Artist in Residency program to Glendale Elementary in California, doing a residency, a dance residency at that school for 2 weeks. And I think the children joined her for just 1 week, and we performed and helped her and assisted in class. But the real powerhouse was Virginia, and she was teaching children all day long, and she was teaching the teachers. She was a master teacher and doing professional development with them. And so we had the options. This sounds familiar because I got an option when I was 4, and I got an option when I was 14. I could either stay at the motel and go swimming or go with the other dancers to the beach, or I could go to the school with Virginia and assist her. I chose the school. My friends chose the beach, but I didn't choose badly. And I should have been more prepared for the kind of the hero status I began to see I had with those children, because my first experience, those dancers were my heroes. My cousin Jane and all of her friends, the 13-year-olds in that class, they were my heroes. I just wanted to so be like them. So when I was assisting Virginia, these little children would come and stand by me, or if I sat down, they'd want to sit on me. And they just hung on me all the time and wanted my autograph, and I was this, but it wasn't that the children were so adoring. It was truly just that I was so, again, compelled by the magic of the unknown, of the presenting of an idea and a problem to solve, and then the requirement to do it with movement. And I danced in every one of the classes Virginia taught, or I assisted her, and that's when I think the spark of, no, I don't just want to dance with Miss Virginia, I want to teach like Miss Virginia, hit me. This is probably the most important point that I can make today. So if I don't get all the way up into, my 60s with you, age 19 was probably a pivotal moment, not just with dance, but with my faith and the relationship of the two. They had been happily spiraling together. But about the age of 17, 18, I began to wonder about my own testimony a little bit, and I began to really think that I was going to be a great dancer, and that was what I had to spend most of my time doing. And I think that little by little, dance was becoming my faith. I hadn't realized it until a non-LDS boyfriend, a young man I was dating, and I'd been dating him for a while, and we kind of had this kind of contentious relationship once in a while. We disagreed on quite a few things. And we were sitting in the parking lot at that big white barracks up on the University of Utah campus, because I was going to teach at Virginia Tanner's studio. At the end of my freshman year, she hired me, and I was teaching at her studio to help put myself through school. And it was time for me to go in and teach. And we were really arguing about something, I don't remember what. But he looked at me and challenged me on the things I thought I valued most. And he said, first, you love dance more than anything. You love dance more than you love me. And I thought, yeah, that's right. I mean, that was not that hard to say, yeah, it's true. I'd rather dance than be with you. And I really did like him. I don't mean to sound so, like I thought I was better than him. He was brilliant. He is a brilliant man. And he did me probably, he helped my testimony probably more than anyone else in my life. Then he said, you love dance more than you love your family. Now, remember when I was 4 and I prayed every night for my mother? I was very, very deeply connected to my siblings and my mother. We had to help each other. We were united. We were strong. We were a strong and loving and bonded family. But I thought, he's right. Dance has come in first place in front of my family. I was letting my family down in some ways sometimes because I was pursuing something else that maybe I could have not done. But dance was everything to me. And then he said the clincher. You love dance more than you love your God. And that knife stuck deep in my heart and burned because I realized it was true. And I had gone off path. It prompted a lot of soul searching. I recalled the story of Enos and his all day and all night prayer. And I had some doubts. I really had some doubts. I was questioning a lot of things in my faith. But I determined I'm going to get down on my knees, pray like my mother taught me, until I feel I have an answer. And I did. I spent the whole night on my knees, and they really hurt the next day. And the answer wasn't a big, blazing, bold answer, but it was this, so clear. I looked at my friends in dance, and the teachers in dance, and those who had dance as their primary focus and priority in their life. And I looked at my friends who were faithful members practicing their religion. I thought, if I can't have all my answers right now, I know which group I want to be part of. The happy group, the group that looks like they're in the light. And this is literally what I saw in that kind of image in my mind. My life in dance had become so dark that I was seeing it through a glass darkly. Everything was dark. And literally, I went to classes at 7 a.m. every morning in the dark, and I came home about 10:30 every night in the dark. So I really was always in the dark, But there was something so dark, and I thought about these people and my family, and it was literally light, and it was a glowing light. It was a radiant light, not just an incandescent light. And I just chose to be more faithful every day, to align myself with what I knew I needed to do to regain my testimony and to realign my priorities. Now, luckily, dance has continued to be a great passion for me, but I can testify to you from that day forward, it has never come in front of my family, and it has never come in front of my God. And I'm grateful that I gained that testimony due to the kindness of a keen observer, a non-LDS friend. I think if we're going to have any time to question and answer, I'm going to have to leave you hanging here at 19. I will just say that so many collaborations, my colleagues have been so inspiring to me. In my 20s, the inspiring heroes and the stories that inspired me the most in both dance and my faith and scholarship, scholarly faith, etc., were my children and my husband and my amazing colleagues. In my 30s, I'd have to say it was Spencer W. Kimball and the scriptures. They were just so powerful to me. I think that year I probably went through the Book of Mormon 3 or 4 times. I just couldn't get enough, those years during my 30s, and one year in particular, I just couldn't get enough of the nourishment. And I kept feeling like if I didn't read my scriptures, I wouldn't dance very well. And whether that was just in my mind or whether there was some truth to it, that it was centering my being and helping me in my teaching and dancing, maybe that was the case. In my 40s, full circle, I think I just finally found what I really, really had always been seeking, and that was to do the thing that Virginia had done. And I can testify again that the Lord helped with the creation of this group called Connect. And I, unfortunately, am not the artistic director anymore. Founder, yes, and happily the artistic director for several years. But another colleague who again, as Confucius says, has surpassed the originator, is now leading that group and doing amazing things. Here's what strengthens my testimony, that my scholarship of working with students to teach them how to teach and to teach them how to create and how to be with children and others in the world. we hear things like this all the time in this environment, and I don't want to make it sound so grand, because I know that winning a big award is very grand, but this kind of reward is also so valuable. A child that says, "Can we stay and keep dancing? I feel so great." And you know that they're not just feeling great because they're moving, but because they're feeling that spiritual thing about when you're creating and you're making choices, you're connecting to something divine. And the teacher says, "No, we need to go to lunch." "Well, can't we skip lunch?" "No, you can't." Can we come dance tomorrow?" "Well, it's Saturday." "Well, can we come dance?" I mean, this kind of exchange, a child so excited. Wow. It's not better than a $10,000 grant, but it suffices some pretty good reward. Or a teacher who says, "That boy smiling and spinning and doing those neat movements over there with his friends hasn't said a word for 2 months since his mother died." And to know that you're doing, in some small way, some form of discipleship, that you are enabling a child to feel better, that you're enabling someone to find something inside themselves, something of hope, something of beauty and truth. Well, to infinity and beyond. Thank you for listening to my story today. I haven't named all the names I wish I could have named. My great heroes, Dee Winterton, Elizabeth R. Hayes, my current heroes, my colleagues that I work with who I look up to so much, and the students who are so willing to take risks. I'm really, really grateful for this, and I don't know if it's appropriate. I think maybe some people do and some people don't, but I do want to say with all my heart that I love our Savior. And if you remember anything about this story or journey that I've shared with you today, please remember that. I know that Christ lives, that he understands us better than we understand ourselves, and if we'll just get quiet, he'll guide us. I testify that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Questions, answers, stories? Macaroons? Oh, yes.
Marilyn, what's your favorite story of dance out of the scriptures or out of a gospel setting?
Well,
Will you repeat the question?
I will repeat the question. What's my favorite story or scripture in the scriptures of dance or in the gospel setting? Wow, I do have a number of examples to make, but I have to go immediately to Ecclesiastes and to the incredible dance of Jose Limon called There Is a Time. And the power that actually dancing, liturgical content can have, but the vast responsibility that we have not to dilute it. Am I worthy enough to be able to handle that kind of material and do it justice as great masters of the past? When you think of the wonderful Hosanna chorus and other kinds of artworks that do depict great gospel messages. I do think of Ecclesiastes first, but one of my colleagues who's not here did an incredible work about the Book of Mormon and the struggles and the strife and the rise and the fall of the Book of Mormon. And I've seen students do some incredible works as well, but the first one that comes to mind is Ecclesiastes. Yeah, for sure. There is a time to every purpose under heaven. I spend a lot of time dancing, but I laugh a lot and cry a lot and do all those other things too. Anybody else? You can turn to each other and tell each other your life stories. What? Yes, Yvette.
How was your experience in dance deepened by your recent trip to China, and what did you learn from the students and the experience there with the Chinese people?
Wow. Yvette and I shared an amazing...
Will you repeat the question?
Oh, thank you. Yvette and I traveled to China together, as did a few other people in this room. We were there at the invitation of the National Center for the Performing Arts in Beijing, China, to come and be part of the spring and fall festival, so that these things that are planted in the spring flower and are harvested in the fall. And so this is an educational opportunity for the best dance schools in China to gather together and to be invited to present in this series of concerts. The first time ever, a non-Asian school was invited, and our BYU Contemporary Dance Company was invited to go. It was pretty thrilling, and also probably even so much larger than the intimidation I felt at giving this talk today. But it was a big encounter, and many people were invested in it. But her question was, what did I learn that deepened my feeling and understanding or testimony of dance as I observed the students in China? One of the dances that we did was called When We Encounter, choreographed by colleague Jiamin Huang. And in this dance, the theme is truly about East meets West. And the strangers to friends kind of relationship that happens when we actually encounter one another. You're here today. We're encountering the feelings of this room together. Thank you for coming and encountering. But it's really to try to dig down and to uncover what real encounter really means. And then the encounters of suspicion and then trust, and the encounters on many levels of just the cultural differences. Well, for this particular concert, we invited 8 dancers from the Beijing Dance Academy to learn 8 roles in the dance, and 8 dancers in CDT to learn the dance. Now, on opposite ends of the world, that was not easy to get together. And again, I told you a little bit about the scholarship of dance, but rehearsal is intensive. It takes probably 20 to 30 hours of rehearsal to equal 1 minute of dance on the stage. You got to put in a lot of time to get that together and to memorize and get it in the bones and the muscles and the soul. And these dancers had to prepare separately. And when they encountered, they only had 1 day to put it all together. And at first there was a little uneasiness, but pretty soon there was a powerful kind of synergy that started to happen. And literally the ideal or the moral of the story of the dance became a reality. And we watched these students in particular, these 8 from BYU and these 8 from Beijing Dance Academy, learn to speak a common language and learn to trust and enjoy and understand one another. I wish I had brought some of the words of our colleague, Wang Wei, who's a vice president at Beijing Dance Academy. After our concert, she went back to her computer and spent several hours, I think, typing a post for a blog in China. And the kinds of praise that she gave us was so profound and so rewarding and so validating, because that's just what I felt in my heart. I felt like love conquers all. I have to say one more thing, Yvette, and I haven't shared this with anybody else yet. Walking through the streets of Beijing, the thing that kept touching me were the older couples holding hands, strolling along together, and the thought again that what really matters most, we have most in common. We want love, we want purpose in our life, we want beauty and truth, and I could go on. We experienced a lot of things there, but I think these students' love for one another and getting together on the last night we were there, and they didn't want to leave each other. They just kept hanging on and hanging out with each other. They really, really made long-lasting friends. I hope that all of these encounters open up the possibilities for more spiritual understanding and exchange, and possibly even, inviting someday the church's presence and recognition in China. But I answered more than you asked. Probably you're all getting ready for a macaroon. One more, Mary?
My question is, as you are the chair of the department, dance department,
Yeah.
how do you see your future? Because you just moved to the fine arts
Mm-hmm.
last year. So how do you see your future with the collaboration with the other departments?
I am so optimistic and hopeful that we'll have more and more. Collaboration is the generation of synergy. It is such a rewarding and hard thing to do. So I don't know. Oh, she asked the question about, inasmuch as I'm the chair of the Department of Dance, and we've joined the College of Fine Arts and Communications. We just became part of that college in 2009, and I became chair at the end of 2010. And so, yeah, we're learning a lot together. It's kind of like that encounter. There's some things that you do that in your culture of dance, and we do it like this here. And we say, oh, is that how you do it in fine arts and communications? We've always done it like this. So we're really navigating and negotiating. But I think the potential collaborations, such as the one I just had the opportunity to do last March, which was, I'd had a lifelong dream to do a whole unconventional evening of cowboy poetry in motion. And because of a great colleague's investment in time and help and work and her students, my dream came true last March. We had cowboy poets, cowboy musicians, we had dancers and designers, and we really had a collaborative effort that created something that none of us could have imagined when we first started with this notion of, what if you just danced to the words of a cowboy poem? What would that look like? How would that come about? So I'm very hopeful and optimistic that we will see the possibilities and engage in them more. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for coming. I think do you have closing words?
Just thank you very much, and we have macaroons out.
Thank you for the opportunity.